Phoibos watch company was founded in 2016. In 2014, the founders had been on a holiday to Greece. Inspired by the scenery and landscape that they saw there, they started Phoibos. Phoibos is Greek for bright, shining one. Now, when it comes to a microband watch, that's definitely a better horological story than most have to offer. But when it comes down to it, how does this ideology and the influence of Greek landscape actually influence their watches? Now, Phoibos were an interesting brand, as they originally started off making homage watches, primarily of the Submariner. However, in about 2018, they started releasing some more original designs. One of those designs is what I'm wearing on my wrist today, which is the Phoibos Wavemaster. Now, it's a very interesting watch, both from a design and spec standpoint, particularly for the time that it came out. Got quite a bit to cover. We're going to cover a bit of Phoibos themselves as well, and we're going to establish in the sort of 2 years where this watch has come out, where does it currently sit in the microbrand market, and are Phoibos a brand that you should invest in? So let's get into the video. First thing we're going to look at is the actual specs for this timepiece. So in terms of case size, you've got a 42mm case, you've got 48.5mm lug to lug, you've got a thickness of 14mm, and you've got a lug width of 22mm. So all in all, for a larger case diameter, is actually quite compact on the lug to lug. Not a sort of a Seiko level of compact, but still quite compact. You see a lot of 50mm lug to lugs at this size, so it's much better for people with smaller wrists. 22mm, obviously a great size for changing out straps, and the thickness, it does house a Seiko NH38A, which is essentially an NH35 movement, which isn't the thinnest of movements, so this case thickness is absolutely acceptable, particularly as it is a dive watch as well. So pretty standard for a watch. It's 316L stainless steel, so very standard there. It does have sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating on the underside. It has a ceramic bezel and a screw down crown and screw down case back, which helps with the 300 meters of water resistance. The bracelet also uses screw pins, so it's a very solid and secure bracelet. Now, this crystal is dead flat, as mentioned, sapphire with anti-reflective coating, so it's very good in the summer. You get very little reflection, and it's very legible as a result. And obviously, sapphire is fantastic as it doesn't scratch nearly as much as other crystals. The ceramic bezel is very good for this price range. It's a bit of a fingerprint magnet, so it will need to be looked after. However, in terms of look, it does look absolutely fantastic. It makes it look like a much more expensive watch, as it has that sort of premium feel. Now, obviously, being a dive watch, we have a screw down crown, which is nicely signed with the Phoibos octopus logo. Threading is very good, no crown guard, so it's very easy to access. Really easy, obviously, because it's Seiko movement, it hand winds, and then if we pull it out, also hacks. Movement itself, I'm not going to speak too much about it because everyone knows this movement at this point. It's within 10 seconds a day, can't remember exactly, but very accurate movement for the price. Now, the bracelet has a press clasp, which is good at this price as well, and screw links, which I found very easy to remove. This was a slightly updated model from the one that was released originally, and originally I think the screws were quite small, so a lot of people complain. So this is kind of like the 1.1 model, so they made these a bit bigger and lubricated them as well, so I had no problems with this. Very, very easy to use. And I should mention as well, actually, the bezel is 120 click, and it has quite a nice action to it, and it is fully loomed. Now, getting into the dial here, you see we've got quite a few interesting things going on. So on the actual dial itself, you can see this really nicely engraved wave pattern, which is actually quite deep with the engraving, so it's quite a striking look. Then you can see just below the 12, you've got the King Octopus logo, which is controversial for some people, but I think it's fantastic, and it's got a lot of personality, and it really makes this watch stand out. And then you can see we've got a mixture of baton and circular indices, and these are filled with this sort of baby blue colour on the loom, which is very effective. And the loom itself, I'll speak about quickly. It's Super Luminova, and and it's BGW9 on the hand indices and bezel marking, so it is a very good lume, which I'll show you in a little bit. And to contrast the blue, you've got this really nice orange, slightly lighter on the actual second hand, and then slightly darker on the actual chapter ring around the outside. So very nice contrast there as well. And in terms of these hands, they're nothing too crazy. They're these sort of batons, obviously longer on the minute and a bit wider on the hour. Very legible, not the most striking hands, but when you've got a watch with quite a lot going on with the baby blue and the wave dial, I don't think you need anything too crazy. So I think it's a really good compliment, and it's quite a tally look. And overall, even though it does have a bit of something special about it, it's quite a tally look to the watch. So I think it definitely suits it well. In terms of the case finishing, it's largely brushed on the bracelet with a bit of high polish on the actual clasp itself. The sides on my unit is high polish with brushing again on top, and these really nicely done chamfered edges on the side, which are very effective. So overall, nothing too crazy with the case finishing, obviously completely brushed on the back. And it has changed in the most recent model, which I'll sort of tell you a bit about later, but these chamfered edges particularly are quite nice. And as you can see here on the back, again you've got the King Octopus logo, and then you've got the spec sheets around the outside, and again this has changed on the most recent version, which I will show you in a little bit. And then you've got, you haven't got drilled lugs, but you have got solid end links as well, which is always great. So I've alluded to previous models of the Phoibos which I own, and this current model which you can buy. The main difference being these much larger indices on the dial of the Phoibos Wavemaster. As you can see, the one that Phoibos currently sell, the indices are far bigger, as is the King Octopus logo, keeping that nice balance to the dial. Now, my main niggle with this watch is the small indices, so Phoibos have gone a long way here into actually fixing that. Part of this is that they've moved their manufacturing from China to Hong Kong, and they've claimed this is a much better facility. As you can also see here, the case back is far nicer. It's a much deeper engraving, and it almost looks like it's sandblasted around the King Octopus, which gives it a real premium look, and it's more of a 3D effect than I have on my current watch. So although mine's nice, they have improved that a lot, and I have to say, Phoibos, well done on that redesign. It looks great. Okay, so I've spoken about quite a few things I like about this watch. The only couple of niggles I have really is that on my unit the bezel is slightly misaligned. It's only very slight. As you can see, the 30 isn't quite matched up when the arrow is with the 60. That is very minor, and it's something that you have to look for to see. However, there might be a bit of misalignment on some of these models, even though I've got a slightly older version. And the only other thing that I would say is that for me these indices are slightly too small for the size of the dial. And again, this was addressed in a later version, which I'll show you in just a second. So that issue has been resolved, and the one with the bezel is very much model by model, so you might not even have to deal with that. In terms of price, this watch currently sells for £249. It's currently sold out, and there is a date model which I believe is £10 more. And I think for that price, you're getting an incredible set of specs. I was able to grab mine for about £170 on a sale before they switched manufacturers to the guys who do the latest model. So for that price, it is absolutely exceptional what I paid, and I still think at £250 it's a good price. However, you will need to look into other brands as well, stuff like Zelos and Spinnaker, because they make watches around about this price, which is also very competitive, so you need to do some research there. So what do I think about this watch then? Overall, I think it's a really fun watch that uses artistic use of colours to really make it unique. Now, when it comes to the origin story of being founded in Greece, outside of the wave dial, I've struggled to see how this has influenced the majority of their watches, to be completely honest. And whilst I think it's great that they've been inspired by scenery and landscape, I would like to see it translated to their watches a bit more. I mean, one example is the Great Wall watch, which is directly inspired by the Great Wall of China with that brick pattern. I'll pop a picture up here. However, this I failed to find the influence from travels to Greece, but aside from that, I think it's a fantastic watch. Obviously, do your research because there's a lot of choice out there these days. But I think if you're looking for a diver, particularly one that's can sort of do it all in terms of having a tooly look, but also being sort of nice enough to wear out, sort of good holiday watch, something that you could wear by the pool and then wear to dinner afterwards. I think that's definitely the sort of territory where this comes into play. Against competition as well is that you've got a lot of Seikos around this price point, where I've made my view on the Seiko Tercel very clear. I think considering they're around about the same price, even though this is better specs, I think the Tercel still has more charm. But if someone was to go for this watch, I think they would have made a very, very good choice indeed. With that, guys, that is the end of my sort of overview of my Phoibos. If you've got any questions, please feel free to leave them down below. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe and leave a thumbs up. That really helps out the channel. And except for that, guys, I'll catch you in the next one.